This is the time of year when, as an executive, you're going to find yourself wanting to make some new initiatives, make some new plans. I'm in that place right now. I have a team. I have some plans for the church. I have some leaders that I work with for my business. So this is the time when a lot of people are framing new ideas. And I'm an idea guy. So I love getting new ideas. I love innovation. I love thinking. I downloaded some books for an upcoming trip I'm taking where I'm going to be listening about how to innovate, how to refresh ideas. But there is a trap that executives fall into when they communicate these ideas. And the trap is for all of us because we have a tendency in two directions. So today I'm going to talk to you about how to communicate new ideas without sounding cocky and without sounding bashful. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Sam Linton Show, the podcast designed to help you shift your mindset, find your voice, and change your world. Sam is a pastor, coach, and expert communicator, helping leaders and entrepreneurs like you step into their purpose, speak with confidence, and make a lasting difference.
All right.
So let's dive in.
If you think of how ideas tend to get into the sphere where there's action being taken by your groups, by your teams, by the people that you're trying to motivate, one of the most important facts to realize about ideas is that they don't fail and they don't arrive dead on arrival because they're good or bad. No. It's usually the way the ideas are set up when they're communicated. There's a setup going on, and if that setup isn't adhered to or attention isn't paid, there's going to be some problems because as a leader, there's really essentially two ways that we tend to find ourselves communicating new ideas. And both of those ways will lead you into what I call idea prison or idea bankruptcy, where you find yourself where you have communicated a certain thing to your team, to your people, but the way you've done it has caused you to come to a place where the idea isn't maybe taken seriously, the idea isn't really validated, or the idea is taken as gospel, and then when that happens, you're in trouble. So I want to share with you how to avoid being overly confident or overly hesitant, because both of those ways will lead the people you're communicating to feel like you don't know what you're freaking doing. That's what's going to happen. They're going to say this person doesn't know what they're doing. The overconfidence is going to do it. The overhesitancy is going to do it, because if both of those things happen, it's going to cause an issue. I'll share just a couple ideas. First, if you come across overconfident, well, people are going to think that you are a little bit too aggressive when it comes to implementation. They're going to think that you haven't really thought through how this idea is going to affect maybe everybody in the organization or maybe everybody on the team. They're going to think that maybe you haven't given them the proper vetting to give them the opportunity to vet your idea, to give them some input on the idea. They're going to think that. They're going to think that you are suffering from a case of the emperor's new clothes, where maybe because you introduce an idea, because of your role, that role enables you to just distribute an idea without really seeing that the idea is road tested and it's going to lead to ruin. So this is one of those things where people, if you're overconfident, they're going to really dismiss you. Or they're going to be intimidated, thinking, oh, if we don't execute this idea properly, then we're going to be essentially kind of cast aside in the organization because we're not honoring the leader's stance. We're not really examining what the leader wants for us to do. So we got to be careful that we don't find ourselves in that trap, the overconfidence trap. The second thing, let's say you're overly hesitant. Now, some of you might lean on this as a way to lead, where you come in, you go, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not sure. Maybe we could try this, or maybe if we thought about doing this, and we kind of put our ideas out there in hopes that the uncertainty will garner us sympathy with regard to how people are receiving our ideas. And I'm saying what I mean, like that your uncertainty is going to garner you sympathy. And I have said before that a lot of times when any of us, not just executives or leaders, but when anyone is speaking, and they put out this, I'm sorry to be here, and oh, the real guy should have been here, and you're stuck with me, and oh, I know you're way better than me, and I'm not the right person for this. You're not trying to really get people to feel sorry for you. You're trying to get sympathy so you don't have to excel in doing your job. That's what it is. You're hoping that sympathy relieves you of the accountability for the fact that you're putting an idea out there that may in fact be dog water. And you don't want people to judge you on that. So instead you're like, well, John said that he was kind of sucky at coming up with ideas anyway, or Meredith said that she didn't really know anything about this situation anyway, and then because of that, everyone's going to give you a free pass as to why they shouldn't hold you accountable for leading the team in that direction. So because of that, when people hear that, they're not going to be confident in your calling and the direction you're going. They're not going to be confident in the fact that what they're working on is going to have any professional fruition. And they're going to start to evaluate you from the lens of thinking that perhaps, you don't know what you're doing. Same deal as before. Same deal as before. So with that said, I want to give you what I would say is what your aim should be. This is the aim. And this is really, really hard. This is really, really hard because if I tell you this, you're going to kind of not want to do this, but you're going to also feel like everything you say is like leading you in one direction or the other, and you don't want to be on either side. But I'm here to tell you that as a leader, you're going to lean one way or the other. I tend to be on the side of, I kind of apologize a little bit for new ideas. The guy that started the church that I work with, he tends to be like, this is the only way. So what I'm going to give you as a goal that you want to have and what you want to be aware of as your goal is that you want your idea to come across as, and here's the word, are you ready? Thoughtful. Thoughtful. You want it to come across as thoughtful. Now, why is thoughtfulness the goal of idea communication? Well, if you come across as so assured that this is the only way that it's going to work, and everybody else's ideas are stupid and there's nobody ever done it better, you are showing that you haven't given much thought to, in a bad world, what could happen here. That's what people are afraid of, and it's going to be communicated that way. They're going to think that you are so blinded by your own music that you're not listening to what could happen if you mess up. So thoughtfulness means that you aren't going to be so overly certain and confident, overly confident to the point where you feel certain that you can use language that demonstrates thoughtfulness. Second of all, if you come across as too uncertain, then people are going to think that you're afraid and you haven't really examined what would happen if it did work. Like, what if this actually is a right idea? What if we start 2026 out with this particular product and we launch it? Then you start off with not, instead of saying it like that, you start off by saying, well, I got an idea. It's a Hail Mary. It's a long shot. And your voice isn't necessarily going to be that way, but that's what they're going to hear. Well, does he even believe in this? Does she even care about this? So you want it to come across as you've thought it through. That you have thought it through. Now, there might be some blind spots that you're missing, but you want to demonstrate to the people that you're leading that you've thought it through. So I'm going to give you why or how this happens, and then how we come to that thoughtfulness. Okay, so first of all, why does this happen? Why do people come across as either hyper confident to the point of certainty or so uncertain that you wouldn't trust them to carry your lunch across the street? It's all coming down to extreme language. And I'm not talking about extreme language like your filter on your television is going to bleep it out. Not that extreme. But it's the exaggerated extreme language that we use. And I'm going to give you the two types real quick. And I know I'm setting this up because you have to be able to identify this problem in order for you to fix this problem. So let's go with the confident language, the overconfident, or I should say, so certain that it has to work language. So first of all is absolute language. This is the only way. I can't think of a downside. There isn't one. This is a fact. This is going to work. 100%. No question are we going to get. And so this overconfident language gives no space for thoughtfulness. It only shows that you say, well, just as certain as the sky is blue. If we switch our budget to this new system and this new software, or we integrate this new product, there's going to be blah, 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 blah. No. That's an absolute language. All right? So you don't want to use absolute language. Second, there's a part of the language is we speak so fast that there's no space. When people tend to be, and a lot of times when delivering an idea, overly certain or certain without thoughtfulness or overconfident, what they do is they talk over what the potential objections could be. Okay, well, we're all doing this, and it's 2026, and by the end of the month, we're going to have this, and blah, 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 blah. And they're just like, boom, by the end of the day, we'll have this started, and let's go. And they leave no space for inflection. They leave no space for their team to have some digestion. I'm not just talking about the lunch, but the ideas. They leave no space for conversation. And that speed of this is what we're doing, as certain as we're going in this direction, gives the team anxiety. And so you want to be aware that you don't want to talk so fast that it removes some of those other areas. And then finally, this is also in with speed, we give absolutely no room for any type of discussion or questioning. Now, some of you that lean authoritative are going to have to guard yourself in this area because you are thinking, oh, what? So I can't lead anymore? I can't just tell people what to do? Well, in reality, as a communicator, as a leader, you should want to have more of a dialogue with your team than you do a direction with your team. Because that dialogue, remember, people will support a vision that they help to create. So if you foster an environment that allows buy-in, people are going to be more apt to get on with your program if they know that you have allowed them to talk it through. So you want to leave room for some invitation. If you're really overconfident, you're going to give no invitation. All you want to hear is how great of an idea this is. Tell me how good this is. Yeah, John, you like this? I see you nod your head. You're excited for this. Oh yeah, Karen, I know you're shaking your head because you're so scared about how awesome this is actually going to be, right? Like we don't want feedback. And I'm not saying this is a time to open up a question answer back and forth. But what I am saying is this is a time for you to make sure that you allow your team to see that this is more thoughtful and not rash. So you want to be more thoughtful than rash. Okay, now let me tell you what to avoid when it comes to overly hesitant language. This would be your confidence killer. First of all, we have qualifying statements. This might. This maybe could be. This is sort of, this is kind of maybe a solution here. That's an excessive qualifier. That's where you are not showing any confidence in the idea at all. And your language is making them feel that that confidence has to come from them. And I've said before, a leader has to realize that when it comes to enthusiasm about a project or about a situation that you're involved in with your team is never going to rise above your level of enthusiasm. So if you go, well, maybe it would be good if we did this in 2026, they're not going to go, yeah, it's going to be great if we do this in most cases. Occasionally you have an outlier who is a person that is great to be an early adopter or an activator. If the Clifton Strengths is your activator, they love taking action on new ideas. But those excessive qualifiers are going to disqualify people from wanting to buy into your idea. Also, the way we apologize. I already touched on this a little bit. Apology framing. Okay, this sounds like it might be dumb, or hear me out, this is going to be ridiculous and horrible and awful, but this might be the worst idea I've ever had, but let me just float it. And in reality, you're hoping somebody goes, no, that's the best idea you've ever had, Sam. You're a genius. Am I really? Give me validation. Again, I'm not saying you don't have language around what is going on in a real sense, but when you float an idea, you want people to think you're thoughtful. All right? Thoughtfulness. So then finally, you don't want to outsource your creativity when it comes to the idea. Now this one is, or outsource your authority, I should say too. Now this one's a little tougher, but you don't want to come into a meeting where you're leading and people are looking for direction from you, unless you're in an executive team. I'm saying if you're in a team where people are expecting you to guide them, you don't want to go, so this is the problem. Does anybody have any ideas? I mean, unless this is an expressly large brainstorming session or a green light session, that might work, but in most cases it's not, because if you're there, if you're paid by a company, or if you own your own company, you're paid to set the agenda. You don't want to outsource your authority. Well, Karen had this idea. What do you think, Jenny? What do you think, Martha? What do you think, Isaiah? Like you keep kind of volleying it. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I don't know what you think. Now you can start a discussion with this is the direction we should go, and then pull them into maybe some implementation. Well, how do you think we should implement this? But you want to keep your authority, because if you're the leader, you're the one that should be trying to set the trajectory without seeming overly confident. Again, remember, this is a difficult line, a slippery slope. I think this is an episode where I'm giving you more problems than solutions, but I have to make you aware that you are falling in one of these camps. You're either overly certain, like to the point of danger, or you're so weak and so wishy-washy about an idea that no one is ever going to take you serious, even if you are serious. Okay, so those are the things to avoid. That overly hesitant language, and that overly this is the only way, and the time is now, and blah. And unless you're about to, of course, go into an oil tanker, you don't want to have people sending you into an oil tanker. All right. So next, I am looking at a list of things that you want to think about that will help you. And these things are going to give you the opportunity to think of your positioning of authority and an idea as an advantage and not something to worry about. And the key that I want to emphasize with you is this. You want to have what I call calming authority. Calm authority. So here's a couple things. Now, these are the actionable points that you want to do here. Okay, first of all, you want to lead with context, not conclusions. So context, remember, what are you trying to show? You're trying to show thoughtfulness. So thoughtfulness would be context. And you say, hey, this is why now is the time for us to talk about hiring a property director for our new facility. And you talk about some problems with facts, not, I really want a property director. Like, you don't want to sound mealy-mouthed. You want to talk about the why. Because, again, you want to show thoughtfulness. You've thought this through. Hey, last month we had an overage when it comes to people who ordered soap. And the month before that, we had a problem when it comes to the building not being cleaned. And the month before, and you're giving facts. You're showing thoughtfulness. So here is the problem we're trying to solve. So you're leading with context and not drawing conclusions. Make sense? So you don't want to say, hey, we have to hire a property director. This is the only way. Instead, you're saying, these are some issues that have come up as a result of not having a property director. Okay, next. When you state your position, do it once and clearly. When you state your position, do it once and clearly. My recommendation is X. And that's it. You don't want to oversell. The only way we're going to get through this is if we hire that property director. No. You don't want to backtrack. Well, we could try a property director. I don't know. I hesitate to even bring that up. Nobody's going to like it. Oh, everybody hates my idea. Like, no. But instead, my recommendation is, bloop, put it out there. This is what we should do. And let it rest. You don't want to harp on it. You want to make sure that you are demonstrating that you've thought it through, but you provided the context as to why this idea is brought up now. Third, acknowledge risk without undercutting your idea. So, I'll give you an example. There's some trade-offs to hiring a consulting firm. There's some hoops we're going to have to jump through in order to do this. There is some potential blowback for us doing this. Okay, these are really good, strong phrases. Acknowledging risk without undercutting your idea, you have to use that kind of phrase. Now, what most people do is, I might be wrong about this, or this could blow up in our faces, or, honestly, I'm just taking a shot in the dark here. So you want to acknowledge the risk. Again, thoughtfulness is your goal, thoughtfulness, without undercutting the idea. And then, after stating the declaration of what you believe should happen, this is when you invite that collaborative discussion. So notice you set the direction first and then move to the discussion. You don't discuss and hope to glean the direction unless you're meeting with executives and everybody's got an equal share and all of you come together. You want to start off with the direction and then go through the discussion. So an example would be, hey, let's pressure test this idea really quick. What am I missing? What am I not seeing? I mean, I've given you some of the risks. What do you see that I don't see? A thing I say to somebody that I work with sometimes is I want to make sure that I don't walk out of this room with my fly down. So show me what I'm missing. I know that's kind of a crass illustration, but you get the gist. The gist. You get the gist. Sorry, gist, drift. I'm good with words, I promise. So, but you want to make sure that we pressure test this. Let's kick the tires on this thing. Let's take it for a test drive and see what would this look like. What would implementation look like? And you invite that collaborative on the discussion of how and not what. So you're still providing the direction from the executive level, but at the same time, you're backing up by bringing them into how it's implemented. So you want to make sure that you put all this together. And of course, using things like your body language, your tone of voice, the way you approach your team, all of that matters, especially in these situations, because if you come in with your shoulders hunched or your arms folded, you're communicating something that you may not want to be communicating. Now, that's it when it comes to new ideas, but I have an idea that this is the year that you're going to want to take on executive coaching for your communication. Coaching it could go a lot of different ways, and I'm not overselling this, but I will tell you that there are few things that you can invest in that will give you the greatest immediate change in your professional development than when you invest in how you communicate as a leader. So, it's 2026 coming around the bend here. I would ask you to jump on in and look at some of the packages we offer. You could reach me by podcast at samuellinton.com. And I would love to help you and your team. I already have some things coming up at the beginning of the year for some people that I'm helping with their teams and training them in communication and sales. All of it is on the table. I love working with leaders. I love working with people who are trying to communicate better. So please let me serve you by making you the best version of yourself as a communicator in this upcoming year. Don't hesitate. I promise there'll be something that we can work out that will help you to get a plan that is both affordable and amazingly impactful on your professional life. So with that said, thank you for tuning in to the Sam Linton Show. Shift your mindset, find your voice, and change your world. We will see you soon.